Petrograd, March 1917. Crowds filled the frozen streets. Women waited in bread queues. Factory workers abandoned their machines. Demonstrators demanded food, an end to the war, and the fall of a government that seemed unable to provide either peace or order. The authorities sent soldiers to suppress them. Then the soldiers began to refuse. Some lowered their weapons, others joined the crowds. Within days, the capital was slipping beyond imperial control. Nicholas II, ruler of an empire governed by his family for more than 3 centuries, would soon be forced from the throne. The Russian Empire did not collapse because of one protest. It had been weakened by years of political failure, social tension, and war. Russia entered the 20th century as an autocracy. Nicholas permitted an elected parliament after the revolution of 1905, but resisted any lasting surrender of imperial authority. Meanwhile, the country was changing. Industrial growth concentrated workers in enormous factories. Peasants continued to demand land. Liberals wanted representative government. Socialists called for revolution. The monarchy could neither contain these pressures nor create institutions trusted enough to resolve them. Then came the First World War. Russia mobilized millions of men, but its armies suffered enormous losses. Defeats damaged confidence in the state. Inflation reduced wages. Railways and supply systems strained under wartime demands. Food existed in parts of the empire, but moving it to the cities became increasingly difficult. In 1915, Nicholas took personal command of the armed forces. The decision tied his authority directly to events at the front. As the war continued, every defeat and shortage weakened confidence in the emperor himself. By early 1917, Petrograd was cold, tense, and increasingly hungry. On what Russia's calendar called 23rd February, 8th March under the modern calendar, women workers and other demonstrators entered the streets. The protests spread. Factories closed. Demands for bread became demands for political change. At first, the government still appeared to possess the force needed to restore order. But the soldiers stationed in Petrograd were exhausted by war. Many were peasants in uniform. When ordered to suppress the crowds, entire units mutinied. That was the decisive break. An autocracy can survive criticism. It cannot survive when the armed forces defending it no longer obey. As soldiers joined the revolution, government authority collapsed. Political leaders formed a provisional government. At the same time, workers and soldiers created the Petrograd Soviet. 2 centers of power now emerged from the ruins of the old regime. Senior generals and political leaders concluded that Nicholas could no longer rule. On March 15, 1917, he abdicated. More than 3 centuries of Romanov rule ended with extraordinary speed. But removing the emperor did not solve Russia's crises. The Provisional Government claimed formal authority. The Petrograd Soviet held deep influence among workers and soldiers. Each depended on the other, yet neither could govern securely. This unstable arrangement became known as dual power. The new government promised political freedom and future elections, but it also chose to continue the war. That decision became increasingly destructive. Soldiers wanted peace. Peasants wanted land. Workers wanted food and better conditions. The government could satisfy none of them quickly. Military discipline deteriorated, land seizures spread, and shortages continued. In April, Vladimir Lenin returned from exile. The Bolsheviks had not created the February Revolution, and they were not yet dominant across Russia. But Lenin recognized the government's weakness. He argued that the Bolsheviks should offer it no support and demand power for the Soviets. Their message was direct: peace, land, bread, and political authority for workers' and soldiers' councils. The appeal grew as the government failed. Bolshevik victory was not inevitable. During the July days, armed workers and soldiers demonstrated before the party was ready to seize power. The unrest was suppressed. Bolshevik leaders were arrested, and Lenin went into hiding. For a moment, the party appeared defeated. Then General Kornilov moved troops toward Petrograd, claiming that order had to be restored. His precise intentions remained disputed, but Prime Minister Alexander Kerensky believed a military takeover was approaching. Kerensky turned to the Soviet and armed workers for help. Railway workers obstructed Kornilov's forces. Agitators persuaded soldiers not to advance. The movement collapsed. The political consequences were immense. The conservative right was discredited. Kerensky appeared weak. The Bolsheviks, who had helped organize resistance, emerged with greater influence and credibility. By autumn, the Provisional Government still occupied ministries and palaces, but commanded less and less real power. Lenin pressed the Bolsheviks to act. Through the Military Revolutionary Committee, in which Leon Trotsky played a central role, Bolshevik-led forces occupied bridges, railway stations, communication centers, and government buildings across Petrograd. The takeover was more organized and less dramatic than later revolutionary mythology suggested. There was no single vast battle for the capital. The remaining authority of the Provisional Government was steadily isolated. The Winter Palace was entered. Ministers were arrested. Kerensky fled. On Russia's old calendar, this was the October Revolution. Under the modern calendar, it occurred in November. The Bolsheviks had seized the capital. They had not yet secured the country. The new government called for peace and recognized peasant seizures of land, but it also moved against political rivals. When elections failed to give the Bolsheviks a majority in the Constituent Assembly, the assembly was dispersed after meeting briefly. Russia left the First World War through the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, surrendering enormous territories. The agreement delivered peace at a severe cost. Across the former empire, resistance hardened into civil war. Red forces fought monarchists, conservatives, rival socialists, nationalist movements, foreign troops, and regional armies. The conflict brought famine, repression, displacement, and destruction. The Bolsheviks survived. In 1922, the Soviet Union was formally established. The Russian Revolution began with bread queues, strikes, and soldiers refusing orders. It created the first lasting state, governed by a Marxist revolutionary party. Its consequences reached far beyond Russia. It inspired communist movements and anti-colonial struggles while generating powerful opposition and fear. The state that emerged would become a decisive force in the Second World War and one of the two great powers of the Cold War. But the revolution's deepest warning lies in how quickly the old order disappeared. The empire was not destroyed by one leader, one party, or one grievance. War intensified political weakness, economic disruption, social conflict, military exhaustion, and public distrust until the state could no longer command obedience. The Bolsheviks did not create that collapse. They were the force most prepared to seize the opening it left behind. Fault lines of history. Like and subscribe if you would like to hear more documentaries about the turning points that changed civilization.